this next instalment of this TPD Round Table, our panel narrows its focus to the incredibly challenging issue of the rise of mental health issues amongst the community and the commensurate increase in mental health TPD claims that the industry has been witnessing in recent years in particular, and talk about challenges that relate to subjectivity versus objectivity when it comes to assessing mental health claims for both TPD and IP for that matter. We talk about issues related to how the industry can better deliver, especially through TPD claims, rehabilitation services that might actually assist clients get back on the road to wellness, and of course price, what the increasing volume of mental health claims does to premium pricing. But in talking about the issues that relate to mental health claims, the panel lays the groundwork for potentially talking about solutions to what is an incredibly challenging issue. See what you think. Let's talk about mental health. Joanna, if I can start with you, and put it on the table, all issues relating to mental health before we move on. Another quote out of an article with Chris Wright. Placing a label of totally and permanently disabled on someone with a mental health condition can be damaging and is part of the reason why this product may no longer be fit for purpose. So we're talking about this conflict between meeting a definition and returning to wellness from a life company perspective. Have you got any comments you'd like to share about that?
Yeah, like the first thing I do want to say about mental health is that it's, from a life company perspective, it's not the fact that it's mental health that is the challenge, it's the fact that it's subjective. And there, as Carly mentioned, there are other conditions that are subjective, fatigue, pain, those types of conditions where you can't have an objective test that says, yes, this person has this level of impairment, and the impairment is the experience of the individual. Like, one of the core principles of insurance is that you're insuring against an event that cannot be controlled by either party, and where there's some self-reporting involved, that's starting to sort of breach that principle and introduce some moral hazard. In particular, we see that has challenges where the sums insured are large, and instead of focusing on recovery, there's a focus on receiving that benefit. Which, of course, if genuinely somebody cannot work, then that is appropriate. But actually there's been lots of research to suggest that work is good for people. It's good for your life. If you can work, it's beneficial for your whole of life. So to have a product out there that incentivizes people to act in a way that's not actually legitimately good for them in the long run.
It's almost a paradox.
Yeah. There's a great phrase, it's called, you can probably compare it, it's called compensation neurosis. You're encouraging people to prove that they're not well, to keep proving it, to tell their family and friends that their integrity is being called in question, all of that, and that to tell anyone you're permanently unable to work cannot be a good societal outcome, which comes back to the question of TPD. I think Kresh's point is right, but I'm not sure it's a new issue. It's always been there, and maybe TPD should not have been a product where you have this idea of permanency at all being included in some kind of reason to claim.
Okay, so we can talk to our claims and underwriting colleagues and then move to the distribution side of the table for your responses, Carly, with regard to mental health.
So there's so many things that we could talk about with regards to mental health. We've talked about the subjectivity and how tough that is, and just mentioning the health benefits of good work. And fundamentally, we know that being employed in good work is good for people's health and long-term well-being. And that's why we have things built into definitions like participating in reasonable retraining and rehab and all those sort of things. And every insurer in the market has a fantastic rehab offering, and they're very willing to pay for that for people, speaking on behalf of the market now, But I think with that purpose in mind, to know that the long-term outcome for somebody is to be employed in good work rather than be labelled with TPD, to have that stigma attached to them that they're on compensation or they're on claim. It's not a great identity for somebody to live with. So having the ability to afford reasonable retraining and rehab is an amazing thing, and we need the support of everybody on how we actually engage customers.
But what do you say to these cynics who would say it's the life companies wanting to get the client off claim?
That's one we've had for a long time, and actually it's probably one that we have now. We're looking at, and when Christine comments on this with Callie, looking at the potential for life insurers to consider funding reasonable treatment for people, which has been tabled by the FSC in the past. We went through a PJC, and that was the argument. This is just another way for insurers to force people back to work so that we can say that they've participated. But actually we think for people with mental health, they're on wait lists for public services for 12, 24 months. They can't afford the services of a psychiatrist or a psychologist. So having the ability to fund a limited or reasonable amount of treatment for somebody in conjunction with supported rehabilitation with the end goal of getting them to something sustainable, something where they're earning a similar amount that they would have had they stayed in the job that they're now TPD for. That's a great outcome for people and for society, we think, in general.
The context is that the insurers benefit by the claimant going back to work. So there's a conflict about who's delivering that service. It's not that the service is wrong, and it's great if no one else is paying for it, that someone is. But
life companies can't at the moment.
Well, no, agreed.
But it sounded more like you were talking about IP than TPD though during that conversation.
Yeah, so with reasonable retraining, there's always the ability for insurers, or most cases and policies, to pay for it under TPD. But what we're seeing now is probably around about 50 to 60% of people on an IP claim are likely to go ahead and claim TPD in the future. So if we can look at the ability to fund treatment or rehab early, we may not have the situation where somebody's given the label of TPD because we've been.
But it's paid out under that benefit, under that product in a future product redesign, if the government would allow it.
If we can get the legislative carve-outs that workers' comp and CTP have to fund treatment.
Got it.
And I just want to add that I get that it seems like a conflict of interest because the insurer is benefiting by avoiding that claim. But actually, if you think about it, it's kind of win-win because the customer gets to go and live their best life. And from an insurer perspective, we do avoid that claim, which means that we can keep costs down.
Yeah.
Because you know, we have spoken about affordability challenges as well. We need to manage that.
Yeah.
That was
literally what I was about to say around. The people who are incredulous of the insurance industry will make that argument, but by keeping costs down, we make insurance available to more people, and that's really important. And then we have all these great things like rehabilitation and sort of return to work incentives. It's very difficult though from an underwriting perspective you might have a standard rates client who's never had anything in their life, and of course they may go on to develop something horrendous, whether it's mental health or otherwise, but we don't have a crystal ball, and as I say, we only have that one chance to get it right. We try and do our best where we have information to mitigate those risks, and the risks are mental health exclusions for underwriters, but as I say, we do our best to offer the cover.
But as advisors, we need to be presenting the TPD as not a windfall gain. It's to get you, it's the way the product is presented to how your clients will then potentially claim on the product too. If you present
in its current state or in a future state.
Well, in any state, any insurance that you recommend a client is for a need, and obviously we don't have a crystal ball, but it's not for them to get a windfall that's going to change their life. And it's very rare that they're going to be able to claim on all 3 or 4 of their insurances. Sometimes they will be able to get an income protection and a crisis claim, and potentially TPD, but it is a lot harder for the TPD claim to go through, but it all comes down back to the advisor presenting it in the right light. And I don't have a lot of clients that want that payday. Like they have it there as a safety net.
Until they do.
Okay.
No one wants it. No one wants it.
Yeah.
Right? We say it all the time. This is here when you need it.
Yeah.
Just be grateful when your premiums for your entire life go to people who really need it, because you never want it.
But how do you marry that? I mean, so just going back to the original discussion about people not keeping it because of the high lapse rates, 1 in 5 claims a decline. there's this compensation neurosis outcome that, for me, it fails a bunch of tests that make me feel I've cancelled my own TPD cover. Just I've got IP. I believe in more of a safety net than having extra windfalls, as you say. How do you, as an advisor talking to clients, you could be one of those cases of the 1 in 5, right? And
I guess
those outcomes feel to me quite.
Your income protection stands at a product that is going to give you an immediate outcome when you need the money.
With a lower hurdle.
With a lower hurdle.
It
could take
great.
8, 12, 18 months, 7 years to get a TPD claim to prove that permanency, because we don't know, it is subjective and you don't know what the client will go through. So when you're delivering that advice, you need what's going to help the client in that need.
Turning to Chris, Ilan's cancelled his TPD policy. He doesn't see as much value in it as keeping his IP. Sasha's been talking about the approach from the advisor. What about your 27 advisors with regard to the value of TPD?
Oh, look, firstly, I agree with Sasha. Like, our clients would not be looking at it as a windfall. I would say actually 9 out of 10 of our clients wouldn't even think they would qualify for TPD for mental health unless it was dead set severe mental health. I think most consumers would see, okay, they've got income protection for that. Something goes wrong and they can't work indefinitely. They've got in most cases, long-term coverage on that, and TPD is really last year they are, as the product is titled, totally and permanently disabled. And I think most people know mental health can come and go pretty quickly. It's got to be a very severe case. The insurer's going to want to see evidence that there's no chance. They're going to have a professional to back that up, that their client's going to never have any chance of returning to work. So I think there's still a fair bit of stuff behind it. But I think when it comes to insurance specialised advisor, price pressure is going to drive change in the market. No longer can you kind of just be, okay, what's the top rating products? You're going to get this, and this. I mean, as I said, it's a bugbear of mine when I heard dealer groups wouldn't allow advisors to move from an old IP contract to a new one because there was too much compliance risk in that because they were losing benefits. Well, that's just rubbish. I mean, if a consumer can't afford the pricing and their POIN, the new product is actually serving a purpose. And with any insurance portfolio, if he's got income protection, he's got life cover, and he's maybe got a trunk, he may not need TPD. If he's TPD, he may feel that the income protection paying through to age 65 and his reserves and everything else is more than suffice. But I think, the pricing of this stuff will sort a lot of stuff out, and I think pricing and optionality has to come into the market. The insurers have got to stop pussyfooting around and worried about upsetting consumer groups and everything else, and give the consumer some options around TPD, just price it accordingly. If the claims are a problem, triple the price, and look what will happen. Same with IP. That's how
but narrow the list of available benefit.
Give the consumer an option to have TPD with no mental health payout. Period. There's no problem with that.
Absolutely. And every mental health exclusion I've had on any of my policies, the client has been absolutely 100% on board with it.
Right.
So they haven't said, "Oh, I can't believe it. It's just another thing." They've been on board to having that exclusion.
Well, I think, lifting it up, we're talking about underwriting, and we're talking about the approaches to underwriting and the necessity of underwriting in a life insurance context. So underwriting is crucial. It's a way of managing risk across all the people who are insured to make sure that their cost of contributing, their premiums, are kept sustainable and are fairly managed across the pool. So taking into account mental health, like any other factor, age, family medical history, hazardous pastimes, lifestyle, these are all critical things in the underwriting process, and underwriting is absolutely necessary to keep the costs of participating in insurance fairly managed across the insurance pool. The sort of next component to that is that life insurers do not want to do things that dissuade people from proactively managing their health, whether it's their physical health or their mental health. We understand that mental health history is a factor that's considered in underwriting, But, I think it is an opportunity for the industry to think about how we manage the necessity of underwriting and the fairness across the pool that enables, with making sure that we don't dissuade people from taking positive steps to manage and proactively manage their mental health.